GDP. 3% would be the cap for non-financial firms like AIG or General Electric. Joining us now, Ted Kaufman, senator from the great state of Delaware, and one of the sponsors of the bill. Senator, we talked to Senator Sanders yesterday, Senator Coburn from the Republican side of the aisle, so Senator Lincoln this morning. Lots of folks are expressing verbal support for what you are describing, but do you actually think you can get it done?
Well, we're going to find out, Dylan. I mean, now we're getting to the nut crunch, the crunching time. This is when we're going to find out, you know, who's who and where everyone is. The bill's probably going to come up. Hopefully, we're going to try to move it on Monday, and then we're going to offer the amendments. You know, as I've said to you before, one of the problems here is the Senate is so incredibly busy with everything it's doing that a lot of my colleagues are just really focusing in on this very, very complex area. So the ones I talk to are very promising, including the folks that you mentioned. But we'll see when we actually get down to it. There's a series of amendments that I think will strengthen the bill and make the bill much more likely that we will never again have too big to fail.
It's clear that too big to fail is explicitly in the interest of the banks and in no one else's interests, if you want to get a sense of how big it is. And I know you know this, Senator, but perhaps for some of your colleagues who may be watching, of those six big banks I mentioned in 1995, 17% of GDP they controlled. In 2010, it's 63%. Something else, we are lending the banks right now at the current rate of 0.2%. We're giving them money at 0.2%. The average credit card rate in this country is currently 17%. I'm telling you numbers that are not corroborated by our graphics package in order to hopefully confuse people. But with that said, too big to fail clearly works for the banks and doesn't work for anybody else. Why is that hard for people to understand?
Well, I just think that, you know, we just came through the financial crisis. I don't know. You have to really talk to the people who are on the other side of this. I think people are concerned that, you know, breaking up banks sounds like a big deal. But, you know, even Alan Greenspan, who has, and I think he has admitted, was clearly wrong and self-regulating the rest of it. He pointed out that, you know, breaking up Standard Oil was not that hard a deal. Basically, the original case had it done in 30 days. I think in the end, after it went to the Supreme Court, it was 6 months. Standard Oil came out even better than they were to go in. So it's not that we did the same thing. Remember the accounting firms? We said they couldn't be in management consulting and also be in accounting. We split them up. That worked. I mean, this is not some big deal, but clearly people are very concerned about breaking up the banks.
There's so much money that the giant banks make because of their unique advantage, the two-class system in our business. Is it because the two-class system allows them to take so much more money that they can then basically over influence on politicians and really no one else stands a chance?
Well, I think that's part of it, but one of the interesting things is they have an incredible advantage over all the other banks in America. A study done of the certificates of deposits from the really big banks, they get higher interest rates than their fellow banks. But one of the things we need, Dylan, is for the other bankers to come forward and explain we don't need these massive banks. We can compete, and we can compete internationally without having this nascent bank. There's just a report out by Mr. Haldane from the Bank of England where he pointed out that we should go back to Glass-Steagall. He pointed out that the economies of scale banks stop at $100 billion. He pointed out that there is no reason to keep these banks the way they are. And he also pointed out that these banks have an incredible competitive edge over the other banks. So the part of it is just I wish the folks on Wall Street and the bankers would come forward and say, look, we know what's going on here. This is what really should happen. But we'll see. I mean, this is a very compelling argument, in my opinion. As you know, I've been talking about this for a while. When I talk to my colleagues, I get a good response. But you never know around here until you actually come to the votes.
What do you think is the best thing you have going for you?
Oh, I just think the strength of the idea. I think the fact that people know that we have to do something different. Look, and after 1929, after the crash, the Congress went out in 1933, passed the Glass-Steagall Act, passed real laws. I don't think it appeals to people the fact that basically we're going to turn this back over to the regulators. Not that I've been against these regulators, but the idea is we should be here legislating for the next 50 years, not for the next 2 years or 3 years. And I think that's really the most compelling thing. The Glass-Steagall worked for us for almost 3 generations. We should go back to that.
Do you feel like a giant bank is to the benefit of anybody other than the giant bank?
I don't even know if it's a benefit to the giant bank, Dylan, to be honest to you. But you're absolutely right. No, it's no benefit to anybody. And it creates a condition where we can have, too big to fail. No, and I'm not even sure it's good for the big banks. Look, one of the things they report in this Bank of England is they all have the same kind of portfolios. That's very dangerous.
Senator, a pleasure. We wish you the best. We certainly have our support. Senator Ted Kaufman, Delaware, thank you. You can bet we will be staying on this story in the days